All right. Welcome, everyone. I see the room is still filling. We have a lot of people from around the world. So welcome to our last eAlliance event this year in 2023. As you can see by our backgrounds, FileWave has arrived right in the holiday season, and I hope you have too. I'm very excited today, to again, as usual, present you a very exciting agenda where we'll talk about new things in the company, new things in the product, and then also end with the very traditional Ask FileWave Anything. And as you can see here, I think very important news is that, I'm going to introduce the next CEO of FileWave to you today. And I can tell you that from, working personally with Leon, over the last couple of weeks in a parallel handover, I think you will be in very good hands, and there's some very exciting things coming for you. So I've been with FileWave for 2.5 years, and I think we've gotten a lot done. I think we have a product that's really, and a product roadmap that is really highly appreciated by you. The progress that we make. We do have some issues, I think, on the Apple front. We'll also get into a little bit today. But I think overall, we still have a very strong backbone and exciting agenda going forward. And I think if you ask me, what does the CEO change mean to me? I think what's exciting is, Leon comes with a lot of experience in the SaaS space. And one of the first things he's planning to do, and he will talk more about that, is really get even closer to you, as an organization. And he will get into the detail of what exactly that means. So I think with that, maybe we can jump to the next slide, and you'll see who the gentleman is. He's already here. Welcome, Leon Vergnes. I'm super excited to have you on board. I can't do the drum rolls, right? But I think I can truly say it's been a pleasure working parallel with you. And I think FileWave will be in very good hands. So super excited to have you on board. And I think with that, over to you.
Thanks, Tobias. First of all, thanks for the introduction and support the last few weeks, and the great work you have done for the company the last few years. And I wish you some great experience to come, and I'm absolutely convinced they will. So again, thanks a lot, and I hope that we're able to do some other meetings before Christmas. So count on you on that one. Anyway, thanks for being here, everyone, and appreciate you being a client of FileWave. I've been asked to introduce myself a little bit and spend a few minutes on it before we're spending time on the more important stuff, to be very honest. For me, let's spend a few words on me personally. My name is, as it's written, Leon Vergnes. The picture is perhaps not best looking. I have no glasses there, but Leon Vergnes is a French name, a Dutch guy, so excuse me for my accent. Okay, born in '66, living between Amsterdam, the Dutch coast, Amsterdam in 20 minutes by car, and the Dutch beaches are waiting for me within 20 minutes on my bicycle. And if I say Dutch beaches, we don't have that good weather, so perhaps I'm able to join the beach 20 days a year to give you a bit of an idea. I'm very happy with my wife, Doreen. We have 4 kids, proud dad of 4. The youngest is 14, the oldest is 26. But more important, however, I think for you guys is my professional background, right? I worked for 27 years for a US headquartered company. And perhaps you are familiar, and I think you are, with that company as well. It's ADP. ADP is a global leader within the human capital management and payroll industry. And after spending my first decade within the sales departments, I moved up into different general management positions and finally was leading the whole EMEA organization for ADP. Then, after all these years, it was ready for something else, and I decided to step out of the beautiful company. I joined Warburg Pincus, private equity firm, and I joined them with Infonica, same industry in Europe. And the last year, I worked as consultant for my own company and advising private equity firms in let's say, deal activities, pre-deal activities. And now it's FileWave. So the question is, why FileWave? Well, for me, working as consultant and sending an invoice after an advice was not really enough. For me, it's important to be part of an organization, I realized. In FileWave, I found a mid-size international software company with potential. And during the interview process, I also met the investors and I met a few of the leadership team. And what I found was a common drive and belief in the company. It's found a key focus on clients and on growth, which is extremely important to me. I came to the conclusion that I could leverage my experience and knowledge in this environment, and I joined December 1st. So, I'm currently in the fantastic phase of onboarding, to be very honest. So everything is new to me, and this meeting is the first one, and I hope many will follow. What you can expect, that I'm always focused, and Tobias was already referring to is, I'm always focused on clients and partners in all what we do. And FileWave should be a great place to work for our employees. I have understood that the new versions, which we are presenting, I think, or at least partly today, are great improvements, and I hope you are with me on that. And as a final note, I'm currently planning a trip to the US by the end of Jan, early Feb. Not just traveling around, but I want to meet you. I want to hear your voice. I want to see you in the eyes. And I would like to understand what you guys are looking for. I'm normally close to partners and clients, so you can expect me quite frequently, I think, in the US to see how things are going and to see how FileWave is able to improve and get better and closer to you guys. For this, this was me. I hope to see you guys in person and in more of these kinds of meetings, and I hand over. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks for the intro, Leon. I think as I didn't overpromise, so I think we have a great new CEO at FileWave. Great things will happen, and I think it's also actually very relevant to you, right? I think you will we'll try to get even closer to you guys, our customers, because you are what makes the company. So excited also to see how this is taking off in the next couple of weeks. So with that, we'll jump over to development and professional services. So I'll hand it over to you, Tony, for the next section.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate you making the time. Happy holidays as well. Thank you for joining us. Since we've only got a short amount of time, may feel like I'm going kind of fast, but we've got a lot of great stuff to share. First, just on 15.2, I want to mention we've got over 360 customers now at 15.2. It's been released, I think 2 weeks ago. So between, we support two major versions of our product right now. That's 15.2 and 15.1. Counts for about 2/3 of our customers today. The reason I wanted to mention that is because there's kind of a long tail of versions after that for those of you who work on-prem. So I wanted to mention two things. One, that support can help you with the upgrades. The upgrades are important because, of course, you get features and you get security fixes as well. So support can help you with that. And I also want to mention, if you're kind of tired of managing it yourself and you'd like us to do so, we do that for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers. So please do reach out if you want to talk about going hosted with your FileWave server. But just in a nutshell, because many of you already have 15.2, the things that were in 15.2 that are worth calling out is completion of the Apple fall release stuff. So primarily this was on the Mac OS side of things, a couple of additional profiles and such, and those are in there. There's an improvement on the Windows side of things for those of you who are used to deploying MSIs. If you've ever had to do anything custom with an MSI, we make it very easy to deploy MSIs. But if you have to do something custom, that you had to write a batch shell script before to call MSI exec and pass command line parameters. You no longer need to do that, and that's supported in both FileWave Central and in FileWave Anywhere. You see kind of a screenshot of that here, how you can set those parameters. But I will mention, as always, test when you're doing deployments like this to make sure the behavior is what you think the behavior is going to be. We're really glad to add this particular feature, though, because it was kind of a nuisance to do the script-based thing. So we're real happy with that work. And I'm also going to mention, although Josh will talk in more detail, about our virtual appliances going to Debian. So CentOS is end of life come next summer. And this was kind of a fallback position for us. Originally, we were going to move from CentOS to Alma Linux. And then kind of last minute, some of the changes that Red Hat made meant that that really wasn't a viable option for us. So we decided to go with Debian instead. Josh and the team worked their little heinies off on getting that work done. He'll talk to you a little bit about that and what that means for future. But it was really important that was done before New Year, so there's time for migration and such. And then, as always, a number of bug fixes and things within this release as well. All right, so next slide, if you would, Josh. Thank you, sir. And as I mentioned, with every one of our releases, we're very frequently updating third-party parts of the application. For those of you who don't know, we use Apache for the web engine. We've got OpenSSL, Postgres for database, Python, OpenSSL, Apache, Python update very frequently. So a non-upgraded FileWave server is going to have older versions of these components. So you very much want to make sure that you stay up to date with these to keep your environment secure. Now, elephant in the room, we want to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the last month. We've had kind of all hands on deck here, and many of you have been impacted by issues on the Apple front related to VPP and MDM commands. So I want to kind of give an overview of this. I'm not going to go in great detail. I'll try to give an explanation, but not too much of an explanation during the Ask Me Anything. Feel free to ask any kind of follow-up questions for this, and we'll go into more detail. But primarily, we've had three issues here over the past couple of months. One, for those of you who are not aware, there's an issue on iOS, iPad OS related to MDM command processing. We'll talk specifics about that in a second. There's been an issue with VPP synchronization. And there's also been an issue with macOS MDM clients as well. The symptoms of those behaviors, if you've experienced these on iPads, the issue related to MDM command processing, it's addressed with version 17.1 of iOS. So you'll need to get your devices to that version. There's no workaround. There's nothing we can do to avoid this problem. But on devices that are less than version 17.1, the installed application list command can stall on an iPad, and when it stalls, MDM becomes unavailable, and it's all iOS devices and iPad OS devices that are impacted by this. So it can stall. What we've seen, the effect of this has been maybe about a 10% impact on devices. The implication is that the longer the device runs, it can eventually stall on this. So it's really important to upgrade your devices if you can to 17.1 and above. It does address this from what we've seen in all. We've not seen this issue recur in any environments where folks have upgraded to 17.1. But of course, you're testing. If you've got testing applications, you need to make sure that it's compatible. On Mac OS, this has been a longer term problem. We can kind of work around it. On earlier than Sonoma, the MDM client on Mac devices can fail as well. It falls on a different command, which is the OS update status command, where we ask the device, hey, can you tell us about Mac OS updates? That can stall, but because there's also a FileWave client on the device, there is a workaround for that. The QR code that's on this slide will take you to an article where it talks about both of these issues. The third and most recent issue that we've had on this list has to do with VPP syncs. Very late October, we saw kind of a global issue that the Apple VPP services were returning 9603 errors to us. It's not necessarily important what that error is, but we saw it just across the board that they were all doing it. The VPP services with FileWave sync with Apple every 5 minutes by default. And that's what we call an incremental sync, where it syncs in, it tries to get whatever the changes are since last time. It's very efficient. It does it very quickly. What we were seeing was long periods of outages with these 9603 errors that resulted in an incremental sync not being able to be done, and a full sync would have to be done. There were performance problems with that were on our side that we've since addressed. We've been testing patches for about the last week and a half to 2 weeks. We're releasing those patches today in versions 15.1.1 of FileWave and versions 15.2.1 of FileWave. So that will, everywhere that we've tested, our patches are resolving the kind of resultant issue. But basically the issue is if the VPP service cannot sync for a long period of time, then we were not recovering well from that issue. So we've addressed the second part of that. Hopefully Apple is keeping an eye on the VPP services. We've not seen that recur for a couple of weeks now, but catching up and getting the environments all synced up again has been super problematic for us. We've got some good fixes in there though, and those fixes have proved good. Right, we've seen in each environment that those have addressed the issues. So wanted to get that out of the way. If there are further questions on this, we'll pick them up in the Ask Me Anything. Next slide, if you would, Josh.
Right there.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, that's fine.
It is.
So I talked last Alliance meeting about the status of things, and so this is just sort of an updated quick slide. So FileWave Server and Booster we released for 15.2, and on the download page you'll see if you were to set up a net new booster or a net new server, you just became a new customer and you're setting up your on-premise, go with Debian, so that you don't have to migrate. If you're replacing a booster, or if you want to replace a booster today, you can do that. So you can run a Debian booster with a CentOS server. If you wanted to start moving over today, that would be fine. The IVS is planned for the end of the month, and that's kind of why we haven't sent out sort of the email to say, hey, do this to get onto Debian. So at the end of the month, the beginning of January, we're going to send out a marketing email to tell you that there's some articles published with some direction, and you'll have all the guidance. But if you're an on-premise customer and you've ever moved from one CentOS to another, it's basically the same process to get to Debian. We're just cleaning up some documentation. If you are on-premise and on macOS, don't worry, we continue to support macOS for the server. If you have no interest in running FileWave Server, just like Tony mentioned earlier, we can actually help you migrate to our hosted. And then you never really have to think about this again. We take care of backups and upgrades. And so you have multiple options. You can either migrate to Debian or migrate to cloud. We can help you. And there's an email address there, customer.experience at FileWave, that you could contact if you are interested in more info on hosting. Just takes one more chore out of your list. But we will be providing information in about 2 weeks, as they say. So then next.
All right, thank you, sir. So what's next? What's coming next with FileWave? We're busy beavering away on the product as we speak. We've got some really good updates for the new year. Sometime early in January, February, we expect to release. But the things that we're working on are the updated kiosk for Mac OS and Windows. Just show of hands out there in the chat. Whom of you have tried the newer iOS kiosk? I'm just curious if anybody has tried that. That's kind of been optional to this point. I will mention that we're actually working on the iOS kiosk as well to do auto deployment of that. So we're trying to make it a little bit simpler to upgrade FileWave, so you don't have to do quite so many steps for all the different components. So with this release as well, not only are we working on the macOS and Windows kiosk refresh, we'll show a little bit of a video on that in a second, but also working on auto upgrade and distribution of that IPA for the iOS kiosk. We're also super happy to announce that we're going to be rolling out dark mode for FileWave Central as well. When we mentioned that we were going to update the UI for FileWave Central, the thing that everybody said before we even did that was, oh, is it going to do dark mode? So we've heard you loud and clear on that, and that's coming out as well. We're also working, it's a question mark whether it'll be released in this version. We're going kind of slow with it. But the release of model update improvements, we want to be very, very careful with that change, but we're looking for performance improvements in our model update process to make that kind of disruptive update to the product much faster for you. So those things are going on now. And we're also, for those of you who have Chrome environments, either managed through FileWave or not, we're making this solution even more attractive. It's quite attractive now, to be honest, but we're adding addition of the ability to power wash Chromebooks, to reboot them, and then updating our synchronization with Google to make it more performant as well. We're really excited to show you that once we have that in place. As Josh mentioned, the move to Debian is underway as well as far as the appliances are concerned, and we'll talk more about that migration. And as he mentioned, going hosted is also an option there too. And the last thing I'll mention on this particular slide is we're working on declarative device management. We've been working on it for quite some time. We said to ourselves, hey, let's start with profiles. We know profiles really well, but what we've found is in practice, they've been the results have been less than spectacular to mix declarative device management and more classic MDM profiles. So we're really focusing on the software update bits of declarative device management. That work is going underway now. We know that is welcome news because software updates through MDM have been problematic, to say the least. So we're looking forward to seeing that move over to declarative device management. Next slide, please, Josh. So two little previews, a very brief one here on dark mode. I will mention as well that we got lots of feedback from customers saying, hey, the new kind of light mode was a little bit too light. So you'll notice in this before we start the video that the left bar, we've gone back to more of a light gray. So it's not quite so bright even in light mode. But if you go ahead and press play there, Josh, you'll see a little preview of the work in progress on dark mode. Right, so there's a preference for switching what mode you're in. Eventually, there'll be one that allows you to define it based on how your system is set. So it can just follow how your system is set. But we're really happy with this, and hopefully everybody is looking forward to this. So this is a big one. And this has been our Qt team has been working on this. Our development teams have names. The Qt team is not actually Qt. It has to do with Qt, which is a kind of a back-end development platform that we use. So that's their work. And then if you go to the next slide, Josh, and we'll probably, this one's too long to show the whole thing, but if you skip forward a bit in that video, if you go ahead and press play, this is a macOS kiosk, and maybe jump to like 45 seconds or so, you get to see what it looks like. So this is the redone macOS kiosk. Windows is being done as well. You can easily customize this within the application to set a primary color and put your logo in. This one has been modified a little bit to have this blue color and a blue logo top left. But the kiosk has needed a refresh for such a very long time, so we're very happy with this as well. And just like with the iOS kiosk, this now puts the install buttons, as you can see here, right at the top level. So when somebody goes to one of these, they can install it. They don't have to go to the detail view. They can install it right from the top level. So we're really happy with both of those things. And as I said, this will be sometime early in the new year. All right, thank you, Josh. We can go ahead to the next slide now. All right, what are we working on later? So first, I want to mention that, nothing that we're working on is magic 8-ball stuff. We're not shaking that thing and saying, hey, what should we work on? What we work on is directly based on the information and feedback we get from you. There's a QR code here that will take you to our product board, roadmaps, and feature request page. I actually think the feature request is more important even than the roadmap, because that's how we hear about the stuff that we're not already thinking about. You can comment on the things that are already there on those boards, and you can submit your own ideas for new things. So we really welcome that. We've had a lot of feedback from folks, and we super appreciate it. So the additional things that we're working on when we get into the new year, continuing with declarative device management. There's lots of different components to that, so we'll be working on that. We've kind of got a little placeholder for ourselves, and this is, opening the kimono a little bit. We're not a perfect organization. We're not perfect people. So we're always looking to improve. We're spending a lot of time looking in particular at our hosted environments to see how we can best improve performance of the application. So that's a lot of data analysis where we're looking at hundreds and hundreds of environments to see, hey, what things hold us up the most, which things can we improve that will have the most meaning, both for our hosted customers and for on-premise. That analysis is ongoing now. So we don't know what that exactly is going to be, that focus of that work, but we're really focused on the performance of the application. We're also going to be working on a front end for third-party patching, which we're quite excited about to allow that to, you can do third-party patching today. We just want to make it a little bit easier. And in general, that's kind of our focus in the product these days, is to try to make the things that you can already do just that much easier. And the last thing that's on this list, at least for now, is working on improvements for our Windows IBS imaging solution. So we've got some updates to that coming as well. And one last thing, something a little bit special. So as I mentioned, trying to make it easier to do things with FileWave that FileWave can do. I kind of stole the idea from something else that I saw, but I really like the idea of security compliance, right? So it's such a big topic in all environments that you're compliant. So in this case, what we're looking at specifically is malware antivirus. Is your environment healthy? I can't tell you the number of customers that I've talked to where I say, hey, do you have antivirus? Yeah, we do. Where is it? Well, it's 100% on every device. No, it's not. Never is, right? Managing endpoints is like herding cats. There's always some outlier. There's always some problem. So what we're working on, we're such a flexible and powerful product that it makes it really easy for us to do some things that other products can't. And one of those is looking at compliance of these applications. What we've already done is built a compliance pack for Defender. This is looking at, is antivirus installed? Is it the right version? Are the definitions up to date? Is it healthy? Is it reporting the way it should? Has it found any kind of threats? And where we're uniquely positioned is we're so flexible that, yeah, we can do that for Defender. Other products do it for Defender, but we're going to do it for Sophos as well, and CrowdStrike, and Symantec, and Trend. So there's a QR code here that's related to custom fields that are gathering the data, reports that are showing you the data, and then even more graphically, as you see here at left, the dashboards in Grafana that show you the reporting of this data. So we're looking for volunteers on this one. If you'd like to participate in this, if you'd like to vote for something maybe that's not on this list, if you'd like to say, hey, I use Symantec and I'd really like to see this develop, please reach out to us. Let us know that you're interested. Let us know what platform you are on, and we'll work with you to implement this. This is totally free of charge. It's not actually even something developed in the product. It's just what FileWave can do out of the box. We're just giving you some content that can really kind of expose your security posture. So we're really looking forward to this. We're quite excited about it, and hopefully you will be as well. Josh, I think that's it for me. It's over to you.
Yeah, thanks. So I just was going to do a quick summary, a quicker version of what we usually do, just running through some things. So lately, I've been speaking with a lot of FileWave admins who say they're new and they never had training because obviously they replaced somebody who was there. And just want to remind you, we have FileWave continuity training that you can do with my team to learn how to use FileWave. We also have FileWave Certified Administrator. If you're super skilled at FileWave and you want to get certification, that exists as a thing. There's FileWave Assist, that ongoing support of your initiatives, and this ties back to Tony's compliance packs. So if there's a compliance pack or just this concept of it, and let's say you use Sophos and we don't have Sophos yet published, we can work with you to work together. I guess it's more of a partnership to create something, and we're happy to spend a little effort on that to be able to share with everybody, and everybody benefits. So FileWave Assist is a great ongoing partnership that helps us build things, helps you get things sooner, and then the migration to hosted or migration to Debian. That's something where we're going to be communicating about that, but today there is a migration to hosted. For years we've been migrating customers that don't want to run their own on-premise server. We continue to do that, and so you can reach out and we can do that with you. And then we have workshops like on Grafana, again tying back to those compliance packs. So the Grafana dashboard. Sometimes it's difficult for somebody to get started. You can do that stuff with us. Windows imaging tends to be a difficult topic for people. We can do that. And then there's, back to school device refresh. We, in the knowledge base, we have playbooks, and we published a playbook on device refresh and the things to think about, but we can also do a workshop with you on your needs. So just know that those are all out there. And then there is also Discord that, we can get together and chat in the Alliance forums. If you don't want to be on Discord, there's also the Alliance web forums, both of which are popular and a good place to ask questions. If you don't quite need PS for something, you just need a little hand, the Discord server is great. And then, I normally do community updates, and I just wanted to highlight the just the main changes that have happened. So the knowledge base, it has an AI bot. It's the little chat icon in the lower right-hand corner. It's using ChatGPT-4 Turbo. What that means for you is that GPT-4 Turbo is faster. For me, it means it uses less tokens, so it's also cheaper, but it's better and faster. So you'll get hopefully better answers from the system. The Foundry, Sean Holden continues to work on video content updates. You may notice little progress bars that have been appearing on the right-hand side of the page because we've been working at how we show your progress through the different courses. And we caught that if you don't have the FileWave Certified Admin program, you're not in that program, you'll realize that you can never get to 100%, but you're not quite sure why, because the homeworks and materials are hidden. So we're redesigning where things sit so that no matter whether you have the FileWave Certified Admin program or not, you could get to 100% and know easily that you've completed everything. So you may notice that, and if you think you've watched everything in a topic and it's not at 100%, that's why, and that'll get adjusted over time. We're realizing these things as it's becoming more popular and we're making more content, we're catching the little quirks that are from the past. So Discord, the important things are that every week, Thursdays in the morning in New York and afternoons in Central European time, we're going to have a 30-minute Debian chat. It's a chance to pop on and know that there's somebody there in person to speak with about it. Although that time doesn't work well for Asia. So we do also have our monthly open office hours, which is an hour long for Asia, and it's 8 a.m. in Singapore time. And the next scheduled one is next week, I believe. But if you go to the events channel in Discord, you'll see all the events, and you can click the little green checkbox if you want to RSVP for something, and it'll remind you about the event. And then the Alliance forums, I just have a quick note that it continues to be more active. There's a lot more posts there. We haven't really changed anything. We just continue to upgrade the software when there's upgrades, but it does continue to become more active. So you should be able to find answers in either Discord or Alliance forums. And really, it's whatever your personal preference is about which one you would use. And so those are the quick updates. And so now it's the AMA part of the event. So I know on the first one about Apple device, declarative device management, we kind of heard a little bit about that from Tony, and I didn't know, was PN going to speak more on that, Tony, or?
PN,
or I guess,
like
did
to speak more?
No, and I don't know if you can actually
speak. I've not said that. I was going to say, hey, PN,
oh, okay.
Do you want to talk?
I didn't know if there were any little blurbs. But
if there are any questions, though, on it in kind of our approach, like I mentioned before, we're really focusing on the software update piece right now. What we really found complicated with the profiles part was, yeah, declarative device management works great, starting with it for setting policies for devices, but an intermix of old classic MDM profiles and DDM together at the same time was proving problematic. So we're letting that continue to mature a little bit while we work on the software update piece, which has been problematic through MDM. That's basically the focus on that one right now. And I'll go ahead and skip to the next question because we were asked this a lot because everybody got an email. We did it as well, saying, "Hey, Google is discontinuing Firebase Cloud messaging. What does that mean?" We're working on knowing what that means, so we're researching that currently because that was the first we'd heard of it as well. So the team's looking at that now. We'll be back to you with guidance on this, but rest assured that we're covering it, and we'll have an update that addresses this. So we'll share information on that one as soon as we can.
And then, migration from CentOS to Debian will look like, so sorry, there was a little echo for a second, but the migration from CentOS to Debian, honestly, if you want a real picture of it, there's a knowledge base article about migrating your server. So this would entirely be for on-premise customers where you run the server yourself. it's a matter of copying the database and some files to the new server. I mean, that's the short version of it. It's a pretty simple process. I would say the documentation seems overly complicated, but that's because it accounts for getting from Mac OS to Linux or Linux to Linux, or there's a lot of combinations that are in the documentation. So we're trying to make it a lot clearer, a lot simpler, and it will basically be stand up the new Debian VM, copy the things over, change if it gets the same IP address and DNS name, bring it online, and it will just work. That's been my experience from doing the process manually a few times, but it will just work. There are two other parts of moving to Debian. So the IVS and boosters, which you would have whether you're hosted or on-premise if you're doing Windows imaging or managing Mac and Windows devices. So for the IVS, you could stand up once we publish it by the end of the year, you could stand up a new Debian IVS. You could give it the same IP address and DNS name and add it to your FileWave server and just kind of have it take over. For boosters, the same thing. You could stand up a new VM, enroll it, and have it take over the services for the old CentOS booster. We thought about things like for boosters, do we want to migrate the data from a booster? But if you think about it, it's got to download the data, whether you copy it or it gets it from the server. So we think it's easy enough for 99% of the customers to stand up a new booster, with same IP address, same DNS name, and have it kind of replace the CentOS booster.
Let me ask a question, Josh. So yes. What if I don't want to do the migration? I don't want to do the work for moving from CentOS to Debian, and I don't want to deal with backups anymore, and I don't want to worry about server upgrades. What's my potential path there?
Well, that's where we have hosting. So we can actually, when you sign up for hosting, a part of that is a setup where professional services will help you get the data to the hosted server, get everything cut over. We'll deal with whatever issues arise with you and just make sure it's as smooth as possible. That's really it. And on the other side is, let's say you just don't want to deal with doing the migration, but you still want to stay on premise. You have a pretty robust virtual environment, you're happy with it. You can also use professional services to get help. And of course, if you're going through the process and you're stuck like anything else, there's also support, obviously. But the idea would be that support would be there when something's broken, right? You've migrated and for some reason there's a bug in the software and they have to figure it out with you. But we're going to have all sorts of avenues for help, like on Discord. The chats will continue through January. I'll probably continue some form of chat on a weekly or bi-weekly basis until June when CentOS is gone, just so that nobody feels like they don't have a place to go.
I'll also mention that one of the biggest things to me about the hosted environments is the backup piece as a protection. So of course we're backing up the hosted environment so you don't have to worry about it, but not a quarter goes by that we don't have a reach out from someone who's had a disk failure in their on-prem solution, and they, sometimes we're able to help and sometimes not, depending on the recovery of that disk. So it's one of the additional things. One, if you're not backing up, make sure that you start doing that, because it can be just super costly to try to restore and lose all that content in the device management, of course. But that is an added component of our hosted solution, as well as that we're handling those backups for you. So I'll mention that too. And then the last question on this list was related to in-person events. We are actually just in beginning of discussions right now, talking about doing some roadshow events. Again, like some of those that we've done in the past. We're really looking forward to those, because honestly, there's nothing we enjoy more than getting together with you and talking about, where the product's headed, what you'd like to see the product do, talk about a little bit about how you do things in the product, maybe a little training, nice mix of things. I don't know, Leon, do you want to mention anything about that?
I ended my brief introduction with that, Tony. So yes, if you like it or not, I will be in the US, and I will be more frequent in the US to meet with you guys. And the roadshow is indeed on our. It's not on our calendar. Yes, we are currently planning. I'm working on the details. I expect to be there end Jan, early Feb, with the team. It's not just me, right?
All right, super. Thank you. I know you've got like 1 billion frequent flyer miles, right? You're looking to pad that a little bit by doing the tour of the U.S. So, are there any other questions or things folks would like to talk about? I haven't seen a whole lot of questions in the chat there. We do have something to show you if you don't have questions, but we'll give it a second.
I did have one more thing on the in-person. Last e-meeting we mentioned that in the spring we wanted to do an in-person training event, and we collected some names for people that were interested. And I just wanted to mention that we're shifting that a little bit, partially because of some changes like what we've announced today. So we still do want to have an in-person event next year. It's just a little shift. So if you did give your name, we have it, and we'll communicate with you about what that becomes. If it moves a little later or different time or different place, or if the roadshow somehow takes some part of that, I don't know. We'll see. But I want to let everybody know. So questions.
Hasn't been much
haven't
popped
seen
up,
any in the
Josh.
chat.
So why don't we do a little dig into we'll give people a chance to ask some questions. But in the meantime, okay, so there's a question from Greg Derrick. I don't know if you're on or can speak here, but there's a question about using Port Tester. What are the best practices around that? That tool can be a little bit confusing at times, and we probably need to update it. Even I think there's an additional port that we may have in there too.
Yeah, there's the tool has changed over time because our ports went through a lot of change, especially last year. There are some things to think about with it, like let's say I was to scan support 2.filewave.net. So when you pick server, it pops in the current list of ports that are in this version of the port tester. I probably have to go back and triple check that we're happy with this port list, but it will scan. And I think 2020, the 2024 is one of the ones that might be that we want to remove. But you can compare this against the knowledge base article on TCP ports. It's easy to manage this. These little dots are just presets for port numbers. So you could technically have it check any port. It will also try and make sure the SSL certificate is verified. So one case where this could be not true or not successful is if you go through a proxy server and that proxy server, by going through there, it changes the SSL cert. There can be problems. But also, let's say everything's green here. Everything's good. You've addressed that you're not going through a proxy server, or you're not doing deep packet inspection on the traffic to your FileWave server. You also think about your clients. So if you're hosted, and like this support 2 is hosted in our Amazon environment, well, my clients are inside my network. Let's say I'm a school, I have students, they're all reaching out to the internet, to the FileWave server. You're going to want to make sure you're also not causing the SSL certificates to get swapped out. You're not blocking ports for them to get to. You also have to think about, can they get to Apple? If you have Apple devices, Apple has a pretty big network range. I'll just type it here so you can see it, but I'm not really scanning it. So this network, 17 dot everything, is Apple, and you have to make sure your Apple devices can reach that network, that your FileWave server can reach that network on, what is it, on 5223, I believe, on TCP 5223, because you will see things do not work. Remember the triangle that, if you've been on any of these where Tony's talked about, it's like that magic triangle, and it's us, it's Apple, it's the device, and if Apple's cut off, you have to do those push notifications to do things. and everything's really driven by push notifications.
And I should mention as well, Josh, I forgot to when we were talking about the VPP related issues, that there is a new setting related to VPP2 that can make your environment even more performant, and that's to turn on notifications from the VPP services. So that's in the knowledge base article for notifications for VPP, but you'll want to check that your environment has that turned on. So if you turn that on in preferences and then do a manual VPP sync afterwards, it'll come back, and if it's good, everything's good. If it comes back and gives you an error message like what you see here, then the environment, Apple can't reach you. But the reason to turn that on is because it means that we're no longer relying on us syncing every 5 minutes to find out about VPP licenses. Instead, Apple will tell us that those licenses are assigned. That actually can speed up performance as well, just through so it's a new addition in VPP2, but you may find that you need to turn that on in your environment to make it a little more performant. And the other thing I want to mention there as well, because we were on the port tester and boosters is one of the things for testing there. One of the things that we frequently see where folks make a mistake. So boosters are only in play if you're managing Mac and Windows devices. It takes load off the server, it saves the network bandwidth, etc. One mistake that we see folks make is to not think about their devices when they're not on the local company or school network. When they're traveling remotely, if you're doing internal only boosters, that can be an issue related to the devices being able to reach a booster, and they'll just try to go to the server, which might bog your server down. So always think about what happens when your devices are on dirty internet as well. It doesn't have to be a separate booster. You can use the same one internally and externally with some creative use of DNS, but you'll want to think about that as well. And for all of these questions, as far as like architecture and ports and how should I do it this way, how should I do it that way, there was also a question here about certification. Kind of all of these roads lead to Josh and the professional services team. They do all sorts of ad hoc training. They can work with you in the FileWave Assist program, all of these different things. So there's always the next level to take FileWave to. It's such a capable tool. There's so many things that you can do with it that there's always someplace else to go. And that might give us a good segue anyway to go take a look at the compliance pack thing, Josh, just to take a quick look at kind of how the sausage is made there. There are two reasons that we worked on this compliance pack topic. One, because it's just generally helpful. It's great to be able to look at that content. But the second is that we have environments where folks may just not know that you can do these kind of super complex things. So what you're looking at here is a report, right? And this report is looking at Microsoft Defender. Now, Defender has some really nice tools within Defender itself to basically ask it, are you healthy? Believe it or not, it actually has better tools on the Mac side than the Windows side, which doesn't seem to make any sense. But it's a little better on the Mac side. But we can ask the devices, are you healthy? So if you go into the custom field definitions here, Josh, what you'll see behind all these reports is all these different custom fields. Now, these are kind of duplicated because we did some funny stuff in here. But if you look at Defender Health, that first one, what you'll see is there's two scripts behind this. There's one that's published for macOS and one that's published for Windows. You don't have to write these things. That's why we're doing them for you, so you don't have to do this. But if you have some other projects, some kind of rollout that you're wanting to police or watch, these are helpful just to have a kind of a game plan for how you maybe could do it with another topic. So we're evaluating when clients send in their inventory, it's looking at all these things. On the Mac OS side, it simply says, hey, are you healthy? And the client says yes. But on the Windows side, they don't have kind of that global value. So we're looking at all the different little things and say, hey, are your virus definitions up to date? Is anti-malware running? Is antivirus running? And then we just get a binary result out of this. This is a Boolean field. It's either true or false. And if you close that definition, Josh, and go back to the report, you'll see that that's what's driving this report, is we've simply got a report that says, hey, here are the devices that are unhealthy. Now, Josh, let me ask you a question, and you can answer. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but why is this done? Why did I do this as a report rather than as a smart group?
Well, I know, I always think of reports are for showing data, smart groups are for assigning content.
That's exactly right.
I
So
can also for Grafana.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's two reasons. One, performance-wise, it's just better for the FileWave server if you've got something that you just want to look at that you're not really actively doing. So if this were a smart group, I'd want to assign something to the smart group that actually fixes this. Now, I may want to do that too, right? But of course, I don't know exactly what's wrong. Why are these devices the unhealthy ones? I don't know. So I need to investigate them. That's why they're in here as a report. But the second side of this is when we take a report like this can actually feed Grafana. So if we hop over to that dashboard, right, what you're seeing here is a visual representation of a set of different reports all related to this. So the health one is that third pie chart that you see, and you see in this environment, this is, you know, sample data from an actual environment. There are 1,000, whatever, I think if you hover over that, Josh, it says the number. So 1,039 devices that are all good and healthy, and there are 6 that are not. And then we can show those 6 unhealthy clients here as well. And these charts, you know, which are great for like showing in a knock or showing for senior management, those link back to these reports, and we can also see the threats that were detected on these devices. If you scroll down a bit, we're also reading information on the version of antivirus that's installed and what version of the virus definitions are installed on the devices. So what we want to see is pictures like we see on the top right when we're looking at Windows. Hey, we're almost all the same, but what are those outliers? Those outliers, of course, we don't care about the one that says 158 because that's all good. Yeah, those are perfect. Those are healthy. What's going on with the others? So for us as IT admins, it gives us a tool set to say, to kind of show us, hey, here's a problem. That's something maybe we want to look at, see why that's going on. So that's kind of behind the scenes with this. Of course, this will differ when we're looking at different compliance packs because it depends on what the actual tool can tell us. Defender's pretty good in this way. We're working on Sophos now. And as I mentioned, some others are coming too. So please do reach out on this one.
And there were a couple of questions. So there was a question about the migration sent to us to Debian. So the article that I mentioned that exists is this article. This is the one where I mentioned that it doesn't mention Debian yet. Basically the same process, just needs cleanup and clarification. So for Harvey, this would be the article to get an idea. But again, wait for us to publish, you know, the actual things in a couple of weeks if you were doing a real migration, and you'll have the best guidance. And then Ben said, you know, about the needs attention on IVS, and Tony, you and I have talked about that. That's, you know, about how there's no more, you don't do net boot for Macs, and so nobody sets that up. So obviously, it always says needs attention, and I think that's somewhere on the roadmap to, maybe not the roadmap, but it's somewhere on the list to do at some point, right?
Well, I can confirm that we 100% agree it should go away. Whether we prioritize that work over something else or not is really the question.
No.
So yeah, that piece.
But it's a known, thing.
Yeah, we'll more likely focus on, you know, we've looked at moving that. The stack for imaging. We use a CentOS or a Linux stack for booting a device that we're going to image on the Windows side. It's more likely that we move those to Windows-based tools. So we have some IVS work scheduled to support cloud better and kind of change some of the way that we send those images between devices. That's the first thing. Would look at moving over to the Windows backend for IVS, and then this will probably be the third thing on that list.
Yeah. Then just because of the questions about things like how do I find out about the FileWave certified admin, or how do I get in contact, who do I get in contact with about particular things? When you go to the knowledge base, if you were to go to just this community engagement one, or you can get there through other ways, but I tried to make articles about all the different services that we have, also about technical support, about professional services, the product management pages here with the roadmap, feedback and product suggestions. Today, the feedback portal goes over to the Foundry, but knowledge base having access control, we can actually move that over to here so you wouldn't have to jump over there. So hopefully later this week I'll make it same article. It's just instead of clicking it and seeing that you have to jump over to the Foundry, it'll just be here. But this is a good list for you if I don't know who to contact about a thing, you know, and it gives you an email address for professional services. So really easy to do, and you can even make a meeting with me with this link here.
Yeah, and I should probably reiterate as well that those the 15.1.1 and 15.2.1 will both be posted here a little bit later today. So we get the product updates are published here as well. Josh, maybe just real quick, can you show the way that the integration of the chat bot there allows you to look up, you know, a firm example of how to do something more so than just keyword search? Like, what if I didn't know how to upgrade my FileWave server, for instance?
So let's see if it works. But no, it works. It's just, so you do have to think about, I've talked about this in the best practices on Discord. You have to think about, you're asking this thing a question that it doesn't really know all the background information that you have in your head. So if you just ask a question like, I've seen questions like background image, but there's no real clarification about a background image on an iPad or a background image on Windows. So think about like you were asking a person a question, you know, and the really nice thing is when you use the normal search, you know, and I type background, the normal search, I have to think of the exact words that are there. But
And
when you use the chat bot,
and the spelling
yes,
as well.
and the spelling. So you're going to see some of my tests here, but the chatbot's nice because it knows that some words have multiple meanings, or maybe, you know, a word could be a synonym for another word. And so I could say, you know, I could say, what's a good question? How can I migrate my FileWave server to a new machine, a new VM? I'm trying to think of words that aren't necessarily exactly that way in the article. I could have used the word instead of migrate, and it probably would have caught it. But it'll try to explain it. It'll try and give you a summary of the steps. But the other good thing is that it will also give you links. So it's going to explain quite a bit on here because this question can be detailed, but then you'll see in these other examples, there's links that it'll give at the end. So it's really good if you don't necessarily 100% know everything about the thing that you're asking about. It also should be able to produce code in PowerShell or other languages as part of its answers. We've told it to just answer FileWave questions about FileWave, but if it touches on something like scripting, it will answer as well, and it should give you some tips. And when you get a bad result, you can mark it thumbs down, and that will actually go to me to look at how we might correct it. Maybe we're missing an article about the topic, or maybe there's some extra words I need to put into the article to make this understand, you know, the right article to use. And you can see it went to that migrating article, you know, and it did give a good explanation. You can ask it to re-explain something, you know. So let's say the wording in the article is not great. There's some bit that you just don't get. You could ask it to explain it, and it knows about the entire knowledge base. So it will connect the dots between multiple articles. So it can be a good tool for finding information. So.
Super, thank you for that, sir. And I see there's a comment in the chat about it'll be useful when there's more content. It's funny about the comment on content because we actually looked at the knowledge base and say, oh my goodness, there's too many things in there that we should really remove. So it's both directions. There's stuff that we need to take away and there's stuff that we need to add. Please do reach out if you see something that that you think should be in the knowledge base that's not there, to either Josh or myself, would be happy to hear it and make sure that we get it in there. We really do watch the support channels in particular to see, you know, what types of things people are asking, to see what we don't have in the knowledge base. Discord, of course, is a great way to communicate too and chat amongst each other.
Yeah, and there is one other way you can interact in the knowledge base, that if you're logged in, so any customers should be able to authenticate. And if you're logged in, you can add comments to pages. And we get notifications when anybody adds a comment, and we can reply and say, so we could clarify something directly in here. So you don't have to necessarily open a support ticket to get us feedback on the knowledge base. It can be direct. And if you really know a topic well, like Swift Dialogue, we have some articles about Swift Dialogue. If you know something like that really well, you could even add, you know, hey, here's some enhancements to, or here's an example of a thing you can do, and maybe we can incorporate that into the knowledge base article so we can all contribute.
Yeah, especially on the recipe side of things. If you've got a really cool way of doing something, that's the thing that we just really love sharing the most is, you know, because we think of lots of cool ways to do things, but it usually doesn't compare to how cool things you're doing. So, you know, feel free to send us those and we'll share them as best we can too. Well, looks like
we're right up against the end.
Yeah, we are at time here. So I just want to, you know, just to wrap up, thank you so much for joining us. We really do. This is our favorite thing to do, is talking to customers. So we really look forward to talking to you next time again. Thank you so much for coming today, and hopefully we'll see you in person before too long too. Thanks so much.